You spoke about how you guys sort of engaged CSIRO to help you try and figure this out. At some point, you did a 2012 feasibility study, and you went down that road. And at which point did you guys suddenly go, should we be looking at this more, or things like that?
Look, we really didn't look at it in 2012 at all. Look, you drill the holes. We've drilled, 100,000 metres of core. And the skarn deposit it opens so many opportunities in terms of different commodities. And this is, the skarn style mineralisation in Russia, China, in Vietnam with our new FAO project. Look at that project, for example. It's got the copper it extracts. It's one of the world's biggest tungsten mines. It's got gold, it's got copper, it's got fluorspar, it's got bismuth. 5 products it produces. That's churning away, and that's a great project, world class. And that's just on the tungsten side of things. So these skarn deposits have got all these mineral opportunities that come out of them. And the great thing about Mount Lindsay, and even if you think about it in Tasmania, is not only is the minerals that are available just in that zone, the Mount Lindsay zone, but in all those parallel zones. And then, even if you talk about Mount Lindsay is, stratigraphy goes this way, and Mount Lindsay goes across many different, and that's why, we've been drilling, getting rare earths from this host rock, and getting a nickel PGE target on this.
The ultramafic belt.
Ultramafic belt. So, Mount Lindsay has never been a straightforward story, and it's kind of like, well, hang on, instead of trying to put a square peg in a round hole, so to speak, why don't we, honour the geology and the mineralisation style, and see if we can get the boron out. And the boron, again, things like, obviously climate change has got our attention to critical minerals. And boron is very clearly a critical mineral. And you think about boron and, most people go, oh, hang on, it's Rio. Etiadman, the Turkish state-owned company, control the market. 85% of the world's production comes from, 55% from the Turkish mines, and the boron mine in California does the other roughly 25%. But Rio trying to build the Yada project in Serbia, which is obviously on hold with the political issues there. And everyone thinks about lithium. It's a lithium boron mine. That's what this Yadarite is. And so clearly Rio, this mine's running out in California. It's been going for nearly 100 years. It's on the way, it's tailing out, and then they want a replacement. They want to maintain their control in the market. But when you think about the geopolitical risk of Turkey, which is kind of like a nation that sort of sits on the boundary between, if you like, Europe and the Islamic states in the Middle East. So it's kind of, geographically it sits on the boundary, if you like. It's kind of in, out of NATO or Europe. It's always been, it's a risk. So geopolitical risk has been highlighted. Critical minerals is boron, like I said, with the EU and on the Japan's list. And it's such a concentrated supply is always going to be a big risk. So that's one of our reasons why. But the other thing is that, we have all this sort of this tin borate sitting outside of our cassiterite zone. We're focusing on, a relatively small percentage of the total resource. But the scheelite, the magnetite, the chalcopyrite, they all exist even with the tin borate. So if you can extract and crack the code on getting the boron out and get a tin and iron concentrate, which is what they do in China and Russia, then all of a sudden you've got the whole project. You're looking at the whole thing now. And that's Mount Lindsay, that main skarn, number 2 skarn. But then there's all these other skarns. You look at the assays we put in our announcement. Oh, greater than 1%. We went across over the detection limit because we didn't assay for it. So we could have 4 or 5, 10% boron in there. And these are the grades like, our friends at Iron Air have. At, 5 advanced materials, it's elements. They've got market caps of $500 million and we've got grades that are very similar to them. We just don't know the scale because we never really focused on it. And we've got, we could have, we know we've got two skarns well drilled out, not fully drilled out, reasonably well drilled out. Main number 2, there's number 1. Funnily enough, it's now before numbers. Main number 2, number 1. Waterhouse, which we discovered. Reward, which is an old tin mine anyway. Livingston, which we know about those two, but we're expanding upon those. But there's a whole bunch of skarns all the way along the stratigraphy, which we haven't even focused. And each one of those, might have 50,000 tonnes of tin metal in them. I'm not sure how much boron, we haven't done those numbers yet, and it's something we need to get a handle on. But if you've got 50, 50, 50, 50, all of a sudden you're not talking about a project with 80,000 tonnes of tin metal. You're talking about projects that got close to half, maybe 500,000 tonnes or 500,000 tonnes. This begins to be the scale of Renison just down the road. A different beast, but the same sort of quantum tin metal, and all of a sudden becomes a world-class tin province, because all of a sudden now we're honouring the style of mineralisation, and now we've got a processing technique that can unlock that. Then all of a sudden it's a much bigger play than what we were contemplating to do in the underground study, which was small, high grade, lower capex scenario. All of a sudden you might be looking at a much bigger mine underground, employing lower cost techniques, a bigger plant, completely different type of deposit, a much bigger tin tungsten. And all of a sudden all the tungsten and the magnetite, which hasn't got this recoverable tin in it, becomes into play as well. So it's a real game changer for Mount Lindsay in our view, and certainly we will expand upon that story with further announcements about Mount Lindsay as we continue this work and try and establish, I suppose, the scale of this opportunity.